This is the Investor Connect podcast program. I'm Hall T. Martin. I'm the host of the show in which we interview angel investors, venture capital, family offices, private equity, and many other investors for early stage and growth companies. I hope you enjoy this episode. Investor Connect is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors and startups for fundraising. Please consider donating $100 to the program to help others in their investor and entrepreneur journey. You can find the donate button on the investorconnect.org website. Well, hello, this is Hall Martin with Investor Connect. Today we're here with Daran Herrman, CEO at Goboto and the host of Establishing Your Empire podcast. Goboto is a full-service marketing company, and Establishing Your Empire is a film podcast that inspires entrepreneurs, creatives, and future business owners to pursue their passions, grow their organizations, and build their empire. Daran, thank you for having me on your show, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for such a wonderful intro as well.
Great. So where are you calling from today?
I'm here in lovely Austin, Texas. It's February and it's 80 degrees outside.
That's great. We'll wait till tomorrow. We'll see what it is then. In Texas, if you don't like the weather, just wait 5 minutes. It'll be different. So it's always something blowing through, but it's nice right now for sure. So it seems like we're getting back to in-person events, and our favorite here in Austin is South by Southwest. It's coming back in person this year. I assume you work with South by Southwest as well.
So I actually was a photographer for South by for 5 years straight. I haven't done it for quite a few years now, but I absolutely love the energy that comes with South by. It was one of the reasons why I moved to Austin, and it's terrible. It's exciting. It's fantastic. It's horrible. It's all the things because there's so much. It's like life to the extreme with the creatives of the world.
Well, that's great. I remember I actually moved to Austin in 1986 or 84. And then in 86, South by Southwest kicked off with this film and music festival. And it was mostly a bunch of bars on 6th Street that let you come in and listen to some music. And I remember in 87, everybody complaining because the tickets went from $6 to $12 and for the entire festival. And then about 20 years ago, they added the conference onto it. And then I think it really took off after that as a professional conference and really gained international notoriety for the scope and what it did as well. So it's come a long ways, just like Austin's come a long ways.
Yeah, you have to, just like the Austin real estate market, you have to add a couple zeros to it at the end.
Absolutely. Well, and same thing with the Austin startup scene. My background is I started my company in 2009 after I retired from my day job of 24 years with NI. And at that time, the Austin startup scene had 2 accelerators, one at the university and then one downtown. And then there was 1 or 2 co-working spaces. I was there for watching the co-working scene come up from what it wasn't to what it is today. And now there's an accelerator on every corner, and every other corner has a co-working space on it. So it certainly has jumped up quite a bit in the prominence of what it's doing there. How have you seen it so far?
So one of the things that always drew me to Austin and what's kept me here is the tech scene. There's a lot of people that are programmers or wanting to be involved in tech scene, wanting to grow companies. They want to get involved in things. And so what I've seen is just more and more of that type of person, which, I'm that person too. Like I moved here in 2008, so I've been here a little longer than most, but at the end of the day, it's what drew me to Austin is there was such a love for tech, but also a love for music and the arts. So with that merger, it just makes sense that there's explosion because there's more and more people coming for those reasons.
Absolutely. And we had for a while there, we were the outpost for sales and support. Facebook, eBay, Google, others use Austin for that for, many years where they've come because there's plenty of millennials, plenty of tech people here signing up for that. And it seems like now we're at the 2020 range. We're now moving to that next level where we're actually funding our own startups. We've been funding startups for a long time, but not certainly at the level we have in the last 2 years. And so now we're the central place, the headquarters for those companies, and as opposed to being the ancillary support force for the Bay Area companies that we used to have all the time. So it seems like there's a real transition from, Web 2 to Web 3, from the old economy to the post-COVID economy. How have you seen it shape up so far?
Well, I see that not just in the startup space, but let's take like Hollywood, for example. They no longer have the full hold on the film industry now. We got Atlanta, we got here in Austin, we got Louisiana's got a ton of it. So we're seeing it in a lot of different areas to where it just can be spread out. And I think the internet's got a big piece of that. It's a great equalizer. We all can now get on there and learn things. We don't have to go to one specific school or one specific place to meet people. And I think it's going to be even broader than that. I think we're going to see some cities that don't even have much right now will get a foothold because maybe the rent is cheaper or whatever it might be. But to me, the internet has really shifted from a physical location to anywhere makes sense.
Well, it used to be cities tried to compete on competency. Like you mentioned, LA was for movies and media, the Bay Area is for tech and those things. And then Austin always carved out specific niches inside the tech space for itself. It was very strong in enterprise software back in the 90s and 2000s. Dell Computer came out of that time frame. But today it's very strong in blockchain, which is kind of a successor to the enterprise software, next generation technology, so to speak. Do you think these cities will continue to carve out specific niches, or do you think that's just going to go away because it's all online and it's now going to be part of a metaverse or some other format?
Yeah, I think that we always like to niche up because we like to get around people that are similar in interests. And we were talking about like how Austin, I think there is a very strong younger community here at Austin. So it just makes sense that they're embracing the NFTs and they embrace the cryptocurrencies. And I was part of that. I was going to a lot of those meetups when at first, Bitcoin got really big. And I think that that will always happen to some extent, but what will happen is it won't, I don't think it'll ever be like 99% of that industry is in one spot. It's going to be all over the place.
Great. Well, you've worked with a lot of startup scenes and seen Austin grow up. What's the most important lesson you've learned in this area?
Oh, the most important lesson. I don't know if this is most important, but the one that comes to mind that I'm slightly surprised at is the importance of storytelling. So what we found is with when tech gets greater and greater, there's more ways to touch people and there's more ways to get out get your message out there. But to do it in a interesting and an impactful way is more and more, it's easier to do now that we have photos and videos and we do all these things. And I always kind of thought of it as like a want to have. And the more I get around more and more companies is if you cannot tell your story in this, like I said, interesting, impactful way, it's just not going to resonate with people. And that's not only to get your startup funded. I'm also talking about interacting with customers and growing your company. If you're selling online, to get customers and keep customers, kind of everywhere down the line. And for me, I've always loved a camera. So that gave me an unfair advantage to do videos before people were doing it. But, if you're good at copywriting, that's great. Blogging, there's a million different ways. Audio, this is a great way of storytelling as well.
Great. Well, as you've seen the entrepreneur ecosystem grow in Austin, what's one thing you didn't expect to see that you did see?
Here in Austin specifically, I think that's an interesting question because really the growth was what I didn't expect to see. I love the city and it just had an explosion of growth. But what I have noticed in kind of in my space, because I do a lot of online, like e-commerce and online selling online, is that anybody can really do it. And especially today with, tools like Shopify, it's so much easier. And then also online is very similar to offline. Like if you take your offline world, let's say you had a brick and mortar store, you're going to like make your showcases in a certain way. So people go through your store in a certain way and you do the same with online. And I just have seen an explosion of people here in Austin, but also all over the place running, starting their own companies, selling online and doing it well.
Yeah. So what's a common myth about selling online in your field of expertise there? What myths are you often dispelling out there?
Well, that it's easy. I talk about how like, motivational it can be to do it, but there is a million steps. And what people typically do is they focus so much on the systems and the marketing and all that. And that's super important. So don't get me wrong there, but the customer is number one. Developing a kind of consistent process that they expect and putting the customer first is something that I think a lot of people miss at.
Great. And how do people do that? What's the key secret there to make sure that gets done well?
Well, I think the best way is you got to humanize your brand, and you do that through communities, transparency, shared values. You do it by storytelling, like I said before, mission driven. And I'm not just saying like where you donate to a cause. I'm saying like if I'm selling microphones, I'm really into microphones, all about it. I'm into podcasts. It'd be all in that full ecosystem, and then creating this consistent customer experience. Whether it's, we've seen Apple with the packaging just being perfect, and their stores always having this very consistent user experience that people become accustomed to. And it doesn't have to be a high-end experience. It just has to be very consistent so that with their expectations match reality.
Great. Well, I always ask this question: what online information source do you find most helpful in your work? I find this is a great way to discover new sites and information sources out there. What do you find helpful?
YouTube. I'm not even going to be even new. I love YouTube. I taught myself photography with YouTube. I teach myself everything. I know that's probably the common answer, but I just, it's a really game changer of not only being able to do something, but having the confidence to try. And, even fix stuff around the house. I'll throw up YouTube and figure it out. And just because I see one, it's not like I'm going to take that as the truth. I'm going to take like 15 videos. Even parenting your child, you kind of like see a couple different perspectives. And so I use YouTube all the time, and it really has been probably to me more important in learning than college.
And so how do you see it progressing over time? You see it just more videos, or are they more in depth? Or are they more expert oriented? Where do you see it growing?
Well, I see YouTube as having a tough time moving ahead because I think people are going to want to probably be niched up a little bit in some areas. And we're already seeing this, you have Skillshare and all these different sites that, is going to be this quality of content every time. There's a lot of time wasted on YouTube. You're going to watch some videos that don't make sense. They take too long to get to the point. So I think that YouTube will just continue to grow because it's the giant that they are. And they have, it's kind of be your one-stop shop. And then you'll have opportunities for other companies to come in and be a really niched environment to do what you expect. An example that I've just said something like, raise your child. Like we would buy a subscription to, I can't remember the company, but a service that was just basically on, infants, right? And they're going to be, done by an actual doctor and done in this way and kind of perfectly done with an outline, which you wouldn't get with YouTube.
Great. So what do you think is the next thing after YouTube? We're seeing a lot of shift from the Web 2 world to the Web 3 world. And that's mostly driven by blockchain, NFTs, metaverse, and those type of things. Do you think there's a follow-on to YouTube that will be the next generation? What would that look like?
Well, and I'm not sure. I think we're going to look at the next operating system, right? You and I come from some days where we learned on DOS, at least I did, and I'm sure you did too. Yeah. And then, Windows 3.1 and 95 and all this. And I think we're going to see a big shift in how we actually interact with technology. Phone is fantastic, but it's slow. You're only using your thumbs to actually interact with it. And, of course, we have video and stuff, but I think it's going to be a more immersive experience. My concern is it has to be better than the phone, right? So when we get there, I think we're kind of a ways out, but I would love to pay for a cooking course with a chef and act like I'm almost there. And so he can interact with me too, right? So let's say that I'm cooking and he's teaching me something. I would love him to say, okay, and we could do this of course with Zoom, but it's really tough, right? I think that just that immersion together is going to get more and more powerful.
Great. Well, the next question I always ask people, and I always get interesting answers to this: if you could start a business tomorrow, what would that business be if it's new and different?
Yeah, I think there's a couple spaces that are really ripe for disruption. And real estate is definitely one of them. And that's something that I'm looking into right now. I also think the travel industry, as in buying and selling, buying your tickets, is in the same way since, 2000. I think with real estate, the fee structure doesn't make sense. 6% for $1 million house that sells itself most of the time, just not quite there and hasn't changed. And we're seeing a couple iBuyers in the space, and what they do is they, like Zillow got out of it, but a couple of different ones where they actually come in and purchase, homes without you having to list it. But I think that's like one little small piece of it. I think there's really needs to be an optimization of every stage of the real estate buying and selling experience.
Right. We're seeing the implementation of NFTs, non-fungible tokens, for real estate and other things as well. Do you think that's the answer for providing additional incentives and alternative payment technologies?
I think it covers one piece of it. What's great when I think of NFTs, I'm like, well, this is a wonderful way to do, you could have your contract be part of NFT. You can own real estate or a part of a company as NFT, but I think that's only maybe on the actual, I have the funds or I'm using a company to get the funds, but there's still all the different steps in between of, finding the house that you want, making an offer, negotiating, and all these other spaces. So I think tech, as in large tech like NFTs, a complete shift will help some of that, but probably not enough.
Plenty more to invent here. We kicking off this decade with a bang, COVID, and then all the things going on with metaverse, NFTs, blockchain, Web3, DeFi. There's just so many things happening and so many more that's going to happen as well. It's going to be exciting to see how it turns out. So in the last minutes that we have here, how best for listeners to get back in touch with you?
So my Twitter as well as my Instagram is at Daran, which is Daran. But what I really love to point people to is my podcast, which you were on, and we have a fantastic episode that we just released not too long ago. But that's establishingyourempire.com. What's great about that is I interview everybody from, I got people who are in the startup industry I got filmmakers, musicians, people who have founded companies all over the place. And it's long format. It's a lot of fun. And I think there's a lot of value there for people to listen to.
Yeah, enjoy being on the show. It was a lot of fun and think it came out well. Looking forward to next steps with it, and appreciate your joining us today. We'll include your contact details in the show notes. I want to thank you for joining us today and hope to have you back for a follow-up soon.
Well, Hall, it was a fantastic pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. And, I think these things are really important to get together and chat about things. And it's always interesting thinking about what's coming up, what's new, as well as what we've done in the past.
That's great. Appreciate you taking time to join us. Investor Connect helps investors interested in startup funding. In this podcast series, experienced investors share their experience and advice. You can learn more at investorconnect.org. Hall T. Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions.